Today we are making ice cream. We are doing two flavors. We have coffee and chocolate. The coffee one is already in progress, so we are going to be making the chocolate one with you. We have some ingredients. We have 2% milk, half and half, sugar, 100% cocoa, some rennet, and that's it. Wait, yeah.
And we're making this without an ice cream maker, so from scratch, we will see how it goes.
So for our project, we decided to make ice cream due to the high consumption in the United States, and in fact, Americans consume more ice cream than any other country in the world, despite its high fat content. In the U.S. and by law, the ice cream must contain at least 10% milk fat by weight to be considered a true ice cream product, and it consists of ice crystals, air, and the liquid component to make an ice cream. And for our project, we are using 2% milk and half instead of whole milk and heavy whipping cream. This will create a lower fat ice cream, which will contain more sugar than milk by weight and less fat overall. And fun fact, low fat ice cream was introduced during the Great Depression as a lower cost alternative to the full fat ice cream.
All right, so our first step today in the ice cream making process is to dissolve 1 tablet of rennet into 1 tablespoon of water. And rennet is a commercially sold version of chymosin, which is an enzyme derived from ruminants, and it acts as a coagulant in our ice cream. So for this, we're going to take this tablet into this bowl and then get a tablespoon of water. And then I'm just going to crush it up a little bit using this knife to make sure it's all dissolved on here. And then we'll be setting this aside for a moment while we mix some of the other ingredients.
The next step is going to be to combine our cocoa powder and sugar. So we'll add 1/2 cup of cocoa powder. This is really good.
Stubborn little thing.
It's old cocoa powder.
And try to flatten that out a little bit. And 1/2 cup of sugar. We're going to mix this until it's totally combined, and then we'll be adding it to the wet ingredients over the stove.
All right, so our next step, we're moving to the stove here, and we're going to be adding, this is our 1 cup of half and half. And then we have 1.5 cups of our 2% reduced fat milk. So combining those into our saucepan, and then we will turn on the heat just to about medium or so. We're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla as well. And then finally, we'll add that cocoa and sugar combo that we just made into this liquid. So this will mix all together, and the recipe calls for us to bring this to lukewarm temperature at about 110 degrees. So we'll be checking our temperature with a thermometer periodically until we reach that 110 degrees.
We're checking the temperature right now, but we're only at about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, so we'll keep it heating. Stirring the liquid mixture over the heat is called homogenization, and this is breaking up and dispersing the fat droplets, and this is going to keep the fat in the water from separating in the ice cream.
So through evenly distributing the fat molecules, it's allowing for a thinner base, therefore capturing more air, which will add to the body of ice cream once it's blended. Okay, so it is about reaching 110 right now, which means that I can add the rennet in and then quickly pour it into this pan where it has to sit undisturbed for about 10 minutes.
All right, so we've turned off the heat, and now here's our rennet dissolved in the water. We're going to stir this together.
Pour it
quickly pour it in.
And now that we will just let it stand for 10 minutes and then be placing it into the freezer. Right, now that we have placed our liquid ice cream mixture into the freezer, we're going to let it freeze until it's firm. And our product is going to be a lower fat ice cream, which freezes at a lower temperature but at a faster rate. This creates smaller ice crystals and contributes to the creaminess of the ice cream. And many manufacturers will further enhance the creaminess by adding bulking agents such as stabilizers and fat replacement.
We're still waiting for our ice cream to firm up in the freezer, and the reason why homemade ice cream tastes different than a store-bought ice cream has a lot to do with the freezing process. Homemade ice cream needs a lot more time to freeze than commercially prepared ice cream, and the longer this freezing time for homemade ice cream, the larger the ice crystals, and then that will make it have a less creamy mouthfeel than a commercially prepared ice cream.
Thawing also has an effect on the texture. As ice cream thaws due to an increase in the temperature, the smallest crystals are the ones that melt first, and that water is taken up by the remaining crystals, making them larger and more grainy. This causes the texture to become more icy and coarse feeling. So when you're scooping ice cream, make sure to put the rest of it back in the freezer. This will keep the texture as creamy as possible.
Okay, so after 3 hours of firming up, our ice cream is now ready to move on to the next step. So I'll be breaking it up with a fork into smaller chunks, placing it into this bowl, and using a hand mixer here to blend it together. Once it's blended, I will return it back to this pan and put it in the freezer for storage. So here we go. Get all the ice cream chunks here.
Looks good.
Alright. And then we'll use our hand mixer to blend this all together.
Because it went in my face.
It went in your
All
face.
over me.
Ooh, that looks nice. All right, and we're still blending. And we're almost,
That looks
we're
good.
almost to a full blend here. All right, so now we have a fully blended ice cream mixture, and I'm going to pour it back in for freezing for storage.
Ice cream is best stored at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. We will use a sheet of wax paper pressed against the ice cream to prevent the absorption of other food odors while the ice cream's in the freezer. And the wax paper will also prevent moisture from getting into the ice cream, which will cause the formation of large ice crystals. And ice crystals are always changing in size, so the texture of the ice cream rarely stays the same throughout its storage life. The initial quality of homemade ice cream only lasts about 3 days.
All right, so these are our final products. We have the chocolate and the coffee. This is what they look like when they've been sitting overnight in the freezer. They didn't come out in the same consistency that we really wanted them to compared to store-bought ice cream.
So a little more icy than we thought, and we think that maybe because we were using a handheld mixer and we weren't able to churn and put air into the mixture as it was freezing, that might be why it seems like a giant crystal instead of lots of small crystals.
Yeah, so it iced over instead of how companies do it is it churns while during the freezing process, so it's constantly getting air in it. But it still tastes good, and we're
Definitely
still
tastes
excited
good.
to eat it. It just isn't the same consistency as it is from the Starbucks one.
Yep.
So